Hey, hi everyone that is watching us, and welcome to one session of the Out of the Box Developer. We will have a special guest with us today here, but let's first say hello to my partner here. Hi, Chila. How are you doing?
Hi, Igor. I am fine, thank you. And good evening, everyone who is watching us tonight. So, I am excited to be here today with our guest who will talk about specific topic AI REC in production. And he's not only talking about it, but as he has got hands on experience, on it. So he will talk about his experience or maybe show us something. So it's not just talking, but sharing his experience with us. So I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. That's something very useful since we are talking about AI and RAG. That is one of the techniques to expand its knowledge beyond what is trained the model, right? And having someone that is really implementing that in production apps would be great to know about it, how it's going, how it's doing. I've been able to play with RAG and with AI implementations with Java and Spring AI
Mm.
last year on the projects that I've been doing, and but not really something in production or for companies. And that will be very interesting to see how it goes. So let's bring our guest here with us. Hi Juan, how you doing? It's great to have you here with us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you. And yeah, pretty excited to talk about a little bit about Rack today.
Yeah, it will be great to know more about it, about this technique and how you're being implementing that on production and seeing on techniques. And I would like to start opening with a question about it. On which main stack and language are you implementing AI and RAG?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, my stack selection is a little bit unpopular. I have been working on this product with Elixir,
Oh,
and I was well. The main product is a web application, and I use LiveView. LiveView is Elixir's technology for writing front end applications, and I then moved to start the implementation of the mobile applications, but those are not ready yet. I have like it's in testing, but publishing apps is so hard. So yes, that's pretty much this stack. It's a lecture in live view. Yeah,
that's a very particular stack, I would say, right? Uh,
I know.
and
Yes,
and and you seems to be very excited talking about that. So I really can feel that you enjoy these
I do. I
implementations.
do. Yes.
Uh,
Elixir is not a very common language out there in the industry, but there are like certain patterns and the way it works that makes it so good to work with AI and with all these RAG techniques that I can further explain a little bit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great, great. You want to ask him something, Sila?
Now, what sets apart Elixir apart from other languages? So, what is in Elixir? What stands out, and you feel excited about it?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a recent study, it's a research that showed that Elixir is a language that is so good to work with LLMs because it's a very terse language. So whenever you start working with LLMs, the not only the developer experience, well, you can be whether vibe coding or anything. Uh, it is very concrete and it is very opinionated. So
Mhm.
the answers and the code that is produced through LLMs is very accurate usually, and works pretty efficiently, pretty much. So I would say, there are three pillars whenever you work with Elixir. One of them is fault tolerance, scalability, and robustness. And these three, they work out of the box. In other languages, you have to fight very, very hard to get those.
Mhm.
So I can assume these were the main criteria that made you use Elixir instead of other languages to deal with LLMs.
So those were the primary ones because I wanted to build a product that worked well at scale. But on the other side, not so many people were talking about AI with Elixir. So it
Mhm.
was like a good opportunity for me to, you know, dive into it and made my researches, and I publish on my blog frequently the experience of working with Elixir and LLMs, and it's been pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and since you write about it, it kind of become a unique source of knowledge for Elixir working with AI, right?
Yes, yes. I won't say my blog is very popular, but at least for the personal education and learning, it works pretty well.
Mhm.
That's great. And also, let me say hello to our audience here that is watching us. Hi, Samuel. How you doing? And also to Leticia Amancio. Hi, Leticia. Just let us know your questions here in the chat, questions that you want to ask Juan about it, either about AI, about RAG, about the implementation, anything that you would like to ask him about the subject that we're talking about today. So, great. Do you want to start with something, Juan, that you have ready for us?
Well, so uh, pretty much, I wanted to share that a few realizations that I come across when I started working with RAG, and is like 1 year ago I was just sitting in my computer and studying all the techniques that you see here and there for AI, and then you go through tools, through agents, blah blah blah. But RAG in particular was one that captivated me a lot because it made me feel that I could have a search engine in my hands with a very, I would say, easy implementation, and the number of applications that this has is like enormous. So if you think about the developer day to day, 70% of our jobs are accessing data. And if you think a database is just another mechanism for searching. It relies on a very well structured language like SQL. But if you extrapolate that idea of search is really, really powerful and useful in any application. Think about e-commerce when you're searching for products, but not only products. You want to know which products are related to other ones. Think about, I don't know, like a ticket website. You're searching for events. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to go to a show, whatever, whatever. And I kept comparing like what you could achieve with RAG versus what you had to do 5 or 7 years ago to index information in your application. Two names that come to my mind: Algolia and probably Elasticsearch, that are really, really popular,
Mhm.
but they're so expensive if you think about it. I worked at a company that paid like $1 million per year in Elasticsearch. So, you know, in my head, I was like, I'm having such a powerful technology that allows me to search in a way that is not predetermined like the regular SQL queries, but it's like more open-ended and gives you more possibilities. So because of that, I connected that idea with something that I had in mind for so many years. So I become a dad 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And one of my main problems was finding photos. So I was at a family reunion and I wanted to find a photo. I just struggled so much to find that specific thing, right? And I said, like, what if I just build a search engine, but for photos and videos? And
Mhm.
I just went like into this idea, and that led me into really, really crazy paths. But during that period, RAG was the main technology that I used. And while also studying RAG, we talk about the naive RAG, which works with text,
Mm.
and there are other more advanced patterns that allow you to have even better results or better applications for RAG. But for education purposes, I think we can share a little bit of what RAG. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of what RAG is, so let me just define that in a very concrete way. RAG is a technique that you use in AI applications, and it has two main operations. You have information that you want to access, but that information is not necessarily text like we store in databases. You can have files, you can have images, you can have videos, but in the end, when everything is transformed into a binary format, everything is text, right? So you can transform that into something that is called an embedding, and you use a vector database. That, on the other hand, whenever you need to query that data, you have a query in the same way, but it's usually natural language. You say, "Give me all the photos of my birthday in 2023." You turn that query also into an embedding, and whenever you compare the two, you have a correlation. And it's like it's an extrapolation of the idea of a database query, but for text, for files, for images, for whatever you want. So it's really powerful because of that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You just remember when I started playing with that last year as well.
Yeah.
And also, your crazy idea was something that I was also struggling a lot. I
Hmm.
would like to find a photo or a video where I was with my family in a certain place, and it was very painful to find it until one of the last releases of Google Photos that they have added Gemini support to
Hmm.
search within the Google Photos. So you are the guy that was responsible for this feature.
Well, I would say Google is my direct competitor, but uh, uh, to be honest, I try a lot that feature in my phone,
Mhm.
and it usually fails, and because of one reason. The search engine that you have available via Google Photos is very explicit. So imagine that we have this frame of us, three of us right now. If I
Yes.
go there and say, for instance, I don't know, a web conference, or I don't know, three people, it might find it. But if I talk about the semantics of what is happening here, it usually fails. So
Mhm.
what are we here about? What are we here for? So, as I was saying, I wanted to find information semantically. So, it's the three of us in a podcast, the three of us in a web conference, or me and my family in the mountains, me and my family in a birthday. A birthday is a concept that is semantic, that you assume because of the items that you see in the photo. But like a birthday, like it's not a concrete thing, if you get what I mean, right? So if I say black shirt, if I say glasses, you're describing exactly what you see in the photo. But whenever you go semantically, like uh, different things, it is a little bit harder. So there's one photo and one video of my kid that I love sharing. Is him. I don't know what's the word in English, but pretty much extracting milk from the cow.
Mhm.
And I never find it in my phone, and I always find it in my app. So I'm like, okay, well, just because of this, it's worth it. And it's been really, really fun to develop, to be honest.
Mhm.
That's great. And then the process of it's done into your phone, or it is done within the cloud. How it does to do this search?
Okay, so technically speaking, I was wondering, like, I cannot be a competitor to Google directly, right? I won't be competing with storage, so I didn't want to have that on my responsibility. So what I do is I integrate with Google Photos, and you
Mhm.
import images into the app. So for those images that you import, that you select them manually, um, I index those photos. So it's like, I want these photos to be findable. And the app is specifically targeted for families and babies. So I didn't want to create a generic thing, because it's much harder to to train, to scope with prompts and everything. And I could, like, my prompts could be more targeted for which kind of moments are we going to talk about? Which kind of moments are you going to store here? So it's like your baby and all the milestones of the baby. It's growing, it's crawling, it's feeding, it's whatever. So all those life cycles were like a smaller target for me to develop. And what I wanted, if this works out in the future, I don't know, was just to create different apps. But the gotcha, I would say, is to let the search engine has only one one specificity, right? Because having something really, really generic leads to worse results. But if you have something more targeted, like, I don't know, you could be storing photos of your animal, your pet. So it could be just for pets, or it could be just for, I don't know, for lifestyle. You go to the gym, you go to, like, I don't know, running outside, etc., etc. So having those scoped environments allows RAG to work really well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that sounds great. And you mentioned that you use Elixir, so I think you worked with Elixir in the backend, right? And the
Yes.
apps, what are you using for development of the apps? Are you deploying it on App Store for iPhone and Android? Or
So the apps are not ready, but the technology that I used was React Native.
oh yeah,
In the end, yeah. In the end, I did something very crazy. I followed this guy that is called Mark Blue. He's one indie hacker reference out there, and he said, like, I converted my mobile app, my web application to a mobile application in 4 hours. And I was like, that's a lie, it cannot be true. Of course, clickbait, scam, whatever. And I said, okay, what? Let's try it. Let's try to convert these web app that I already have working with LiveView and Elixir, and let's try to, I don't know, make it with React Native. And I would say, like, the basic functionality, because the configuration with the stores take a lot of time, to be honest. And to me, that has been like the worst part. But the main, I was able to vibe code it like in 8 hours, um, and I continued to improve it during a week. So put it a week to convert one web app fully to a mobile app. That's crazy. So I think we're just living in a world where we can experiment a lot
yeah.
and use those LLMs to help us in favor of experimenting faster and faster and delivering things that it might work, it might not work, but it's a nice experiment.
Yeah, yeah, we have powers with that. And you use what to use to transform that? You use Cursor, you use any platform that is for developer oriented. Can you give us
So
just a hint?
today I use more Cloud Code, um,
Mhm.
Oh,
and
okay.
in the past months, Anthropic has released so many updates. Like, we used to joke that Anthropic's release page is like a fire hose. They just release something every single day. But I've been like using a combination of Cloud Code and Cursor, but mostly Cloud Code these days. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. It seems to be very powerful cloud code these days, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely. It's a lot. Very, very powerful.
And which is the name of your app one? Is this already published so we can find it in
So,
the store?
as I was saying, I'm having an outage right now, so it's very embarrassing. But the the let me share private chat. The I have a website,
Mm-hmm.
and there you go. So that is the website that is currently working, but the mobile applications, they're not ready yet. They're going to be hopefully released really soon. But I have it working on my phone already, like the test internal app. Um, but yeah, pretty much it. Only the website for now. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, like uh, the this idea of RAG allows you to work with multimodal, right? So that is also one of the most powerful insights that I extract from this whole process. Like right now, you can search on anything. You can search on files. You can search on images, and and many people ask me like, how do you search on images? How do you search on videos? What do you guys think? If you had to search on a video, what would you do?
Very tricky. If you look to the video or the image, you would need to
Mhm.
go across it. But
Yes.
from what you gave us on the first part of our talk here, since you're converting that out to bytes, you will search through it, I believe.
Hmm.
I
That
would
would be my
say maybe I would add one more thing. If you are storing videos and would like to search about videos, maybe you also would want to put in some metadata connected to the videos, and
Yeah.
with
yeah,
that metadata you
transcription.
can search. Yeah,
That is
to
a really that is a really good insight. And in reality, that is what happens pretty much. Yes, we can say. Uh, with images are just matrices. It's a matrix,
Mhm.
and you just extract information about that. One of the things like that I did because once I had the process, I had to turn it cost effective as well. So I was like, how can I process this image in a very cheap way? So whenever I import images from Google, I turn them into very tiny thumbnails, very tiny. And those thumbnails, I ask OpenAI, like, hey, what's inside of it? And they return to you a very informative structure.
Mhm.
And it works pretty well with images. But with videos had two layers. You have, in a certain way, a collage of images that has like if you turn a video into a sequence of images, it's like huge. And you have the audio layered as well. So you separate those layers. And what I did literally was take a snapshots of the video. So think of a print screen throughout the video. And whenever you send all of those, you pick a number, 3, 5. I scope the videos like to 1 minute. So I take 6 images of that minute. And whenever you send that to an LLM, it is able to interpret the sequence of images and correlate all of them to try to infer what happens throughout the video and not to evaluate all of them in isolation. So that also allows you to create a connection of, it's like showing different parts of the video, that way, like in a robot uh, fashion, but it also worked pretty well. uh, and that allowed me to process and search on those. So whenever you convert the images into text, then you transform that into the embedding. Uh, but again, impressively powerful, and impressively that this is a mathematical operation that you perform. In the end, you have two vectors, and you run them through a process that is called causing similarity. And the beautiful thing is, one, you can make typos. So if you type, I don't know, running with only one n, it is going to still be able to grab the context of what are the results similar to that. And second, what was the second one? Uh, oh, sorry. Ah. I just, lost the idea. But yeah, like having also to look at the mathematical behavior of that, how it works is really beautiful.
Yeah, that's very powerful. It can analyze the whole story of pictures, talking about the video, and then you try to assume and interpret what would be that sequence.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
exactly.
very interesting. Let's just take a quick look here on the chat. Lego Geeks ask, "What are you building with what tool?" I believe we just showed here. Since I've sent the website on this sequence, it's a tool to search on photos and videos. And then also Leticia shared with us that she is also searching bar metadata too, or
Yeah.
for each image or video have a short description with the contents of this file. So I
Yes.
understand that the technique that you're doing, you're getting the imported images, you're doing thumbnails of it, and then you're using OpenAI to extract that metadata based on the
Yeah.
content of it. That's
Yes.
very clever.
And
And
is the result of that call what you embed and what you store in the in the vector database, pretty much.
yeah, the
And the
description of it.
beautiful thing, is that you have to do that only once.
Mhm.
You just embed your image once, and then all the queries they hit your database, they will get access to it. So that is the beauty of it. Yeah.
Because that's already indexed, right? And
Yes.
because you're doing that and thumbnail, it helps you to lower the costs of processing it at OpenAI.
Yes.
And are the results yet very good, or it tends to fail because of the lower resolution?
That is a great question. There's a point. I made so many experiments. There's a point. 124 pixels is like the lower limit. Anything lower than that, you start losing information because it cannot
Mm,
process the image that well. But down, well, I use 300 thumbnails because in the end, I think I will show you guys the app that I'm
sure.
running locally. The one in production, it is currently facing some issues. But like in the end, um, the 300 by 300 pixels is pretty enough. But you could go down to 160, and it would still be informative. Yeah.
Great, great. And that's
and
great.
and and Elixir comes into place to do a couple of things. So whenever I wanted to do this, as you may imagine, I don't process the images synchronously. I process them asynchronously. So I created a something called that I call a multi pipeline. That is a data pipeline processing where every image passes from one stage to another. So the first stage is like download and generate the thumbnail. Next stage is extract the information from the image and embed it. And the final stage is save that into the database. Okay. Uh, and Elixir has a library that is called Oban that helps you synchronize jobs. You have things like RabbitMQ or Kafka or something like that, but Elixir has its own in the ecosystem. Oban is pretty common, and you can have multiple pipelines that have just one responsibility, and you scale each pipeline independently. So the one that extracts the information is the one that usually consumes more information. The one uh, co- that converts the image into a thumbnail, it also consumes a lot of processing CPU. So you are able to scale um, the resources, like how many of these pipelines am I going to run simultaneously so that I do not kill my server pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, so that is also that Elixir helps you a lot with, because it's pretty easy to orchestrate things in an asynchronous way.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and that leads me to the next question. Where are you hosting of this process? Are you hosting that on AWS? And also, if you found any challenge to run Elixir on any of those cloud environments?
So for AWS is terrific, but it's very expensive whenever you're paying for it, pretty much.
Mhm.
So I wanted to find alternatives. From AWS, I just use S3 to store like the thumbnails. I I use Cloudflare to cache things, assets, everything, blah blah blah, the CDN. I use Fly.io. Fly.io is a cloud provider, but it is usually a little bit cheaper. And for database, I am using Supabase. Supabase,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know about that cloud provider. How it's called? Fly?
Fly.io. Literally fly, yeah.
Fly. Great, great. So it's great because you'll be able to find some fly.io. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's
Supabase, yeah.
run build fast. So it's very so it would be much cheaper for running any application in the cloud using Fly, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Let's just say hi to Renato here. Hi, Renato. It's good to have you here. Uh, Tila, would you like to ask something to Juan?
No, I was wondering this scalability, how you can scale the application, but you already mentioned some of the challenges, how this can happen asynchronously with your pipelines. So that was one of
Yes.
my interest, how it's going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. No. In that sense, well, I was trying to create an application with the lower cost as possible. Because it was just an experiment. It was something that I'm playing with. I'm taking this to one step further, trying to productionize it, but it still doesn't give me any revenue. Uh, However, uh, one of the things that I evaluated originally was like, okay, I can have, I don't know, a serverless function or anything in AWS, blah blah blah. But in the end, there are some trade-offs, as I mentioned, and the reliability here is really important because, in my opinion, the the major benefit of this application is the search engine, and if it doesn't work, you won't pay for it. If it is slow, you won't pay for it. If it is hard to use, you won't pay for it. So uh, those three pillars from Elixir, they matched pretty well what I wanted. And in the past year, I have been focused a lot on how can I use AI to make products better, and I learned a lot throughout that process with Elixir. But I have had a little bit of experience with Python as well and with Node.js. And what I can say is the nature of Elixir as well. The programming language, it is extensible. It has this concept of macros. Macros are pieces of code that are generated at compile time, and you are able to define an agentic architecture with Elixir using these kind of macros, and it's really beautiful. So imagine that I have an agent for translations, I have an agent for completions, I have an agent for extracting this information from the images, and so on and so on. So the final orchestration and organization of the code is also pretty neat. So I would love if people could explore a little bit more Elixir, because it is indeed really powerful. I'm biased, of course, but it has so many benefits. Yeah.
Mhm. That's great. So, Juan, would you like us to show something that you
Yes.
have around it?
I will, but let me do something. I will need to rejoin the call from my other
Okay.
computer just because I have it running here, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. And so for you guys that are watching us, or you those of you that just joined us, we're talking about AI, and especially the application in a production environment of RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So Juan has been working in an app that is the Momento Baby. We shared the link here in the chat, that it's able to search not only for text, but is also to search through images and videos through its context. And he's sharing with us his experience in developing it, implementing it, and with Elixir. And he's gonna show us more now on the running app that he will just do a live demo for us right now.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Alrighty. I'm so sorry for that hiccup. Give me a second. I will share my screen.
Sure. You guys, if you have any questions for Juan, just send it in the chat here so we can ask him your own questions.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, and everyone can now.
Okay, perfect. So this is the app pretty much. Whenever you log in, you get a gallery. I just imported a couple of pictures while I was during the call. This is my local environment, but in the end, the idea is that you have the ability to store information, well, images and videos from your family. So uh, it works with multiple languages. Right now, I have that configured to be English, but you can change it to Spanish or Portuguese. And if I say, mom's birthday, it returns that moment. As you can see, there's a cake here, and the kids are just singing or reading a book in the bed. So it returns as well here. Or if we say, I don't know, playing with the cow, there's a cow here. Not sure if it's really evident,
Mhm.
but it is. I don't know, uh, sitting in a restaurant. Say, here it is. So I was able to grab the semantics of the image, of what is happening in the image, um, and allow you to search on that. If we change the language to Portuguese, we can say, tirando leite da vaca, which translates, like grabbing, I don't know, milk out of the cow, something
Mhm.
like that.
Yes.
Or brincando com capacete, which is like playing with helmets. Didn't work. Let's say helmet. There it is. So it recognizes items from the image as well as context. And one caveat that I learned as well during that process is RAG doesn't work well with single words. So if I say here bad, it works, but I had to make a trick. Uh,
Mm,
whenever you use just like one or two words, I don't use RAG at all. I just use like string matching to the metadata because when you give it short words, it tends to hallucinate more and it tends to match on things that are mainly unrelated. So whenever that happens, I opt for other search, more traditional search criteria. And what I also want to share is I will demonstrate how we can make typos. So instead of helmet,
so
I would say like helmet without the e. Here, as you can see, it doesn't work because
mhm.
it's using the traditional search criteria. But if I say playing with helmet, gosh, let me try another one. So sitting in the restaurant. Gosh, okay, this is here like
Mhm.
this. In the end, you're able to make some typos in your searches,
Mhm.
uh, but in general, it works pretty well extracting the context or playing with a dog. Here it is. So that's it pretty much. This is the app.
Mhm.
It uses RAG underneath, and you can also use like tag your photos with folders. You can and whenever you want to see one of them, clicking open, it pretty much it links you back to Google Photos.
Yeah.
So the storage is not here. The storage price is not mine, but yours pretty much. And yeah, that's it.
And that's very interesting since depending on how many words you put in the search, you will use one searching technique or another, right?
Yes,
So if you're using a single word, it's kind of try to match that more likely like a where in SQL query, a more rigid search instead of using rag. And then if you write more than a word, I'm not sure how you implemented that. If that's two or three words, it will
yeah,
switch to use rag technique instead.
exactly. Yes,
And then that's all searching on the embeddings. How do
embedding.
you differentiate for using those both searches? They're all using the same vector database, right?
No, the answer is no. And
No.
I'm going to show you like how much it takes for you to scan and like do all the things. As you can see, it start importing, and it takes around 20 seconds, 25.
Mm,
So it is not too much, but it also relies on something that I use, a feature from Elixir that is called Phoenix Pops Up, which it allows you to send asynchronous messages, and the front end is able to refresh automatically. This one took a little bit more. Usually it takes less time. But as you saw, everything refreshed automatically as well. But
mm,
now, responding to your question, you said I stored both the original metadata and the embedded format of that. So whenever I say here, a selfie, here, this one is actually looking at the real metadata, which is a JSON object. Now,
mm,
if I do selfie with my dad. This one is using RAG,
Mm.
and it is working against the embedding version.
Okay, so you're also storing the metadata in a JSON for each picture here.
Yes, and if I say like things like mom, it understands. It tries to derive who's the mom in this image. Because again, I can do this because I know that all the images are expected to be related to a family picture or a
Hmm.
family
Mhm.
configuration
Yes.
or that. Oopsie, that. So I'm here. So things like that work pretty well, and yeah, these were kind of tricks here and there that I started to apply to the product to make it a little bit more reliable. But yeah, it was a nice
Uh-huh.
experience for.
Yeah, and it's yet very powerful.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you were able to compare with what Google has released
No, I,
recently.
as I'm saying, I would say mine is better because of
I
this.
think so.
Uh-huh.
But again, because mine is just for babies and families. Google
Yeah.
has like a super huge engine that is really
Mhm.
powerful and is more generic. But this one is like, given that I'm more targeted, I'm able to get better results. And I compared the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I truly believe yours gave better results because sometimes I try to find pictures from my last Euro trip. It's over 8,000
But
pictures and videos.
you know what compromises as well? The storage. So
Yeah.
Google, whenever it backs up the images, they're not findable anymore, like in your local phone. I'm not sure if you have realized that. I think that's how
Oh.
it works because if you have some backup, like very old pictures, it's really hard for you to find them. I don't know.
Mhm.
Not actually. I'm not sure with the very old pictures, but I don't have these pictures in my phone anymore because
Mm.
they took a lot of time,
Yeah,
a lot of space.
space.
So
Yes.
they are only in the Google Cloud right now.
Mm. Gotcha.
Most of times it finds what I want, most of times it doesn't or give me a different result, but anyway, it's much better than the standard search that we have until some months ago. I believe 1 or 2 months. That's a very new feature that they've just released. But yours seems to be getting better results. I would need it to test yours as well, and do a comparison between them, because my scenario is very familiar for what you do. I'm looking more for family pictures from a
Yes.
trip we did and certain scenarios. So
Awesome.
and that's amazing to see since you're working alone in this project, right, Juan?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and we're comparing to Google that probably has a whole team working on that and unlimited resource on that. So it's pretty amazing to do to see what you have done with this
Thank
project.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations, man. So if you're from Google and you're watching us, you're missing this guy there.
For sure.
Yes, yes, but yeah, I have to fix a couple of bugs in production. I'm having one token expired, and I'm not being able to load the images. But as you mentioned, it's only one person, and it's hard to
Yeah.
keep track of all the things while also having a full time job. But it's been like at least very fun, and I've learned a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we would say that's your part-time project, right? It's
Yes,
you're not working on full time on that, and many people says that they don't have time to do a part-time project, and you're competing against Google. So
but again, I think the one of the insights that I want to share with you as well is like using tools like Cursor and Cloud Code today allowed me to get there,
Yes.
because my insights were more, what is the architecture that I want to achieve, rather
Mhm.
than the nitpicky of the code. If you use if else instead of a case, instead of, you know what, I didn't matter for that. I mattered about the architecture of the product. How to
Exactly. Mhm.
scale this, how, what are the pieces, what are the components, and this is what turned this into a really powerful project, in my opinion. Uh, so that's also an insight. AI is here for us to use, but the architectural insights that we give it are key pieces to the success of the project.
Mhm.
That's great. Then we could say that AI kind of helped you not only to achieve what you're achieving in the search in the internal architecture, but also to develop the back end, the
Yes,
front end, and also the app. So we would say that that has given you powers that would be unimaginable years ago, or would
exactly.
take many times to develop by hand.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would have needed a whole team if this wasn't the case, of course.
Yeah. Uh, w- do you have any advice for anyone that is still a root developer and needs to play more with AI to put his hands on and create apps without fearing it, without believing that they need to know everything for the language and they need to understand how it all works before getting his hands dirt on it.
Yeah, definitely. I would dare you to experiment. Dare to experiment, dare to play with it. I set myself a goal last year that I wanted to build two products. One of them is in my blog. It's called Family Tree. I used an advanced technique of RAG that is called Graph RAG, and instead of using embeddings, you use knowledge graphs, because they are able to give you information not about something, but also about the relationships of that entity. And that was a really really fun project as well. That I can show you here pretty quick if you want.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And for you guys, I'm sharing with you here in the chat Juan's blog. Subscribe to Juan as well there so you
Can
can
you see?
follow him.
Can you
Let
see
me
my
just
screen?
share your screen. Yes, we can see and
Yes.
everyone can now.
Awesome. So yeah, this was like a total game at the beginning. I was like, my family is growing a lot, and I'm Colombian, so everybody is like out there. Uh, I wanted to capture like my
Mm.
family
Oh,
tree. So people that have died, and this is me and my wife. And here there's an AI where you can say like, who's uh, Juan Pablo Rivillas Ospina's wife. And
not available. You
uh,
didn't pay it.
no, as I say, the,
The key.
oh my goodness, the key also kind of expired here.
Uh,
Um,
This is
yeah.
a live streaming is like that. You
yeah, yeah, yeah,
know.
I know. But in the end, this is like this chat. Usually, it is able to respond to questions about the family tree. Like, who
Mhm.
are my children, who are my parents, where do I live, and so on. But the technique that I use for this, and I talk about here in my blog, is called naive rag versus graph rag. And it's really really powerful in business cases as well. So think about this. Sometimes in the industry, you have business processes, or you have business information that is correlated. Think about e-commerce. whenever you buy a phone, you usually buy a charger, you usually buy a protection for your phone. So a graph is an excellent representation of the information when it goes when we talk about relationships. So you can use the same tool calls and agents to get an entity, and while you get an entity, you're actually querying the graph, and the graph returns you, not only the node of which is the phone, but who's around me. And that technique also allows you to build really, really interesting applications. And it's like one of the extension of graph of graphs and RAG. And I will share a link here where you can find
Mhm.
so many courses about RAG and graph RAG for free. This is where I have studied a lot. So it's graph
That's amazing.
RAG.
Also, Juan, let me ask you, you showed us your family's tree and you added that data manually, or are you grabbing all of that data to generate that tree from somewhere?
No, no, the data I generated, that like that data set manually. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
For
But I
for
found this very nice visualization. So, what were you using for it, for the visualization part?
It is a library. It's kind of the same that Figma uses. I'm not sure if you noticed that
Uh-huh.
it has this grid behind.
Yeah.
Um, I don't recall the name exactly, but it's called React Graph, something like that. It's React
Um,
in the um, and let me share here. So this is Neo4j is a graph database.
yes.
And then they have a lot of courses on graph rag, and because in the same way that SQL allows you to query Postgres databases, they have a language called Cypher, and that language you can use to query those graphs. So, I've taken a couple of courses from them. They're free. They give free webinars and a lot of great content. If you're interested in like dive deep, going to a deep dive into RAG, I assure you it's a really, really nice experience. And I have brought that knowledge to the companies that I work for, implementing search mechanisms as well. Fact pages, or all these chats where you have a bot responding to somebody. It needs access to a content that is files or documents and API documentation, whatever you want, you can feed into RAG. So I love RAG. I'm biased again, but it has I don't know. I feel like with superpowers, to be honest.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It is.
I totally agree, guy. I was playing with that last year when I was exploring more about Spring AI, and then I found Rag, and that's pretty amazing. Of course, you've gone a step much further than I was, but I was just scratching the surface, and that was really, really powerful because you're not limited to what the model is trained for. You explode that to the whole internet, to anything you can read from. We just have tools like would say Perplexity, that it's
Yes.
an AI platform that's solely focused on RAG. It does RAG through the whole internet, of course, for use grabbing data more inside of their user interface and not into applications like you showed us here. So RAG is a great, amazing technique, and it's amazing to see how much AI and LLMs has brought to us into the technology, into applications, into
Hmm.
backend, into front end, into search engines. It's a whole new world, a whole new chapter on it. And like I always tend to say to everyone that watches, you should at least know about it, know what exists, and maybe you don't need to know how to implement it all, but if if you feel to do something like Juan did, you started this project last year, right, Juan?
Yes, in October.
In October. It's less than a year. If you feel that you can do that, you have all the power. So
Yeah.
we just encourage everyone to play around the same way I did, the same way Juan did, and the same way Sila does with her own projects. It's really powerful. And I would also like to thank you, Samuel, for being with us here. Samuel is our number one fan, I would say. He is always here with us. It's great to have you here, Samuel, until the end, strong and together.
Awesome.
We're almost reaching our time here. Any final words or last questions from you, Tila, to Juan that we'd like to ask him?
Maybe I have one more question about so this reg or database is a separate entity. If you had experienced any performance problems or latency problems correlated
So
to network or
the there are a couple of ways to configure your um, your vector data. I use Postgres. Postgres has an extension.
Mhm.
Uh, However, there's a limitation whenever you use Postgres. It only is capable only to generate vectors of 4,000 dimensions. If you need more dimensions than that, then you have to go to other databases like Pinecone, like well, there are other two that are very popular that are cloud based. And for me, like for these basic use cases, Postgres works really well because it's already what you know, and you can have a regular table where one of the columns is that embedding. So it's like it is very easy to use. I
Mhm.
haven't reached a performance issue or anything.
Yeah.
As you saw, the searches
Yes,
are pretty
exactly.
quick.
Hmm.
The importing is really quick in general, like less than a minute for sure. What I show you today, it took more time, to be honest. Um, and the other consideration are the indexes. So you have to create some indexes as well on those columns. So it's kind of the same that we know with Postgres databases, with a slight modifications whenever you configure them. But once you do that, it's a one-time thing, and that's all.
Hmm.
I know that there are two types of indexes. I gave a talk about that, but I won't recall exactly the names of that. Maybe I can share them later. But I talk about that in my blog, and definitely you will find that there, like what index to use whenever you work with vector databases and Postgres.
Yeah, I believe you use the Supa base, right? You shared with us here.
Yes, I use Supabase,
Upon.
but there are other options as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
The good thing about this is that you can use it locally too, like the regular with the Docker image with Postgres. You just install that extension, and
Yeah,
it's quite easy, super
Hmm.
easy, like nothing
yeah.
crazy in terms of infrastructure.
I was just opening my GitHub here to remember which one I was using when I was playing with Rag, and I was using the Milvus vector database back then.
Gotcha.
So it worked pretty fine. I would like
Mm.
to. I will review it after our call here, because it was very fun to play with it, and I didn't play with that anymore. But I will also review my API key because probably it's not working anymore.
Oh man, so embarrassing. Sorry for that.
No, man, it was fun. This is a live show. Always happens something.
There you go.
Man, I would really thank you for being here with us today. It was really great session, really powerful. I would also congratulate you for doing this amazing project,
Thank you.
amazing work that you're doing with the Memento baby. It's really interesting and I would say revolutionary to see how you're doing something that even Google is struggling to do, and they took a lot of time to release something similar. And congratulations, man!
Mhm.
Keep it up. It's your part-time project. If anyone that is watching us, you say if you don't have time for a part-time project, I would say don't be lazy.
Just
Do
paint,
so.
just
Just set
paint cloud code.
priorities.
And I would say that for myself as well. Don't be lazy. You want to do a lot of things. Many of the questions that I did to you for our audience, I also do that for myself because most of times we do have a lot of great ideas, and in the past we probably didn't have all the knowledge needed to create apps backend, but we didn't have AI that is such a powerful tool that empowers us so much. And knowing how to use it to create what we want, and having experience as software engineers that we're all here, it's very powerful. So
Yeah,
we would say that we are in a very powerful era that the ones that handle AI will become even more powerful, and the ones that doesn't know anything at all and wants to stay in the roots, they will be probably kicked out.
yeah,
Mhm.
That's how I see that.
I agree.
Man, thanks a lot for bringing everything
Mhm.
you bring here, your knowledge and your time for joining us here.
Thank you,
W-
Igor. Thank you, Sheila. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much, Juan. So, very nice application of those technologies. So, I enjoyed it very much. So, thank you for having joined.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye
My
all.
pleasure.
Bye bye.
Samuel, we like that you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed, and see you guys on the next session of the Out of the Box Developer.
Mhm.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye.